My name is Mike, and well, there's some bikes over there. You'll notice that I have attached to the back of my Astro van, my Go Get the Project Vehicle assembly attachment here, my trailer. And you'll notice that it's hooked up and it's dark 30 in the morning. That can only mean one thing. I'm going to go get another project that I don't really need or have any room for. But that also means something, doesn't it? If I'm going to get a project I don't need, that I don't have room for, that means I'm getting it really, really cheap. So we're going to venture off to Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to pick up another project. And if you want to find out what that project is, well, you're just going to have to stick around. Now, prior to hooking my van up to my Go Get the Project attachment thing, I had to put motor mounts in this van because, well, on a recent trip, the transmission tried to come through the floorboard. And there was thumping and banging, and I was really concerned that I wasn't even going to make it back and that I was going to look in my rearview mirror and see the transmission on the ground. It was a pain in the butt. The rear mount wasn't too bad. The left side mount wasn't too bad. But that right side mount, they want you to remove the entire right front suspension to get to the nuts and bolts that hold that mount in. I managed to persevere at a very awkward angle because, well, I'm not particularly tall, and my hoist doesn't go all the way up when the van is on it because of my low roof. Well, there's the trans mount. You can see it's broken, right here. And it's really, really broken right here, and it's, broken here. And the front mounts, well, they're no better. That one's broken, and that one is broken. So I guess I'm lucky the engine and the tranny are still in this thing. We're going to get them swapped out, get her back on the ground. It's actually not too bad. The only drawback is, well, on my lift, because of the overhead of my roof, I can only go up so far. And although I'm not a tall man, well, I'm going to be bumping my head a lot because this is eye level right here. We'll get it. So my back has been kind of complaining today because it was just awkward as heck trying to crawl up in there and get those. But we got it done. Van is ready for a little trip, and we'll bring back another project. So stick around.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
Well, that's certainly a good foundation, and even if I have to hunt down a wiring harness for it,
it'd be worth my while to try to get it back on the road.
I posted in it a while ago, and people said, "Oh, you can get the parts for like $150 to do all of it." You know what you're talking about? And I'm like, "Yeah, but I know my mechanical ability,
Yeah.
so I would still have to."
This is Chris. He made me a good deal on the Victory. Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
And, you know, check out the channel and we'll see this old girl get back on the road. I appreciate you, man. Have a great day.
Oh, yeah.
let's have a little closer look at this fine vehicle. Right off the bat, you'll notice something that, well, pretty common. Look at that fork seal. Oh yeah. I don't think I've ever owned a Victory that didn't have leaking fork seals. And I've replaced gazillions of them, and it doesn't take long before they leak again. I guess that's just the price for having a Victory. It's not that big a deal. This is a 2000 model year, so it has the coffin type air filter, so we know what we're going to do with that, don't we? Some good news is that if you look right back behind the pulley here, I have a speed sensor. And that tells me that this one's had the transmission update. At least one of them, the first one. Okay? It's got the fancy auxiliary type foot peg, footboard things, which I don't really particularly care for, but it's got them. That's pretty nice. It's got them for the passenger. But on the other side here, yeah, it's got the passenger one, but the driver's side there, well, it's kind of broken. So I'm going to have to round one of those up. Not that big a deal. What I did notice, though, was that every single electrical connector that could be disconnected has been disconnected. Somebody's been chasing electrical problems. Even the ECU is unplugged on this side. So there's our connector for the ECU. There's our ECU. And there's plugs everywhere. Not sure what they thought they were accomplishing. So we're going to have to dig into it. The story is that the wire harness got chewed by rodents. Damn grizzly squirrels come out of the woodwork to get on motorcycle wire harnesses because they're delicious. And grizzly squirrels simply can't resist. So I haven't really done any further investigating. We'll get the seat off. We'll look around. We'll probably get the tank off and see just how bad that harness is. It may be repairable. It may not. I haven't looked at it yet. The rest of the bike overall is fairly complete. The vinyl is, it's still there. I'm kind of surprised. It's been out in the elements and it hasn't cracked yet. So let me get some stuff on it. Try and keep it from getting ruined. As you can see, it's come from a climate of considerable moisture because you got a little rust going on there. And I noticed a couple of other places, a little bit of rust, but not bad. Not too bad. A little bit here on the windshield mount, a little bit here. It did come with a windshield, but the plexiglass is shot. The chrome piece is good. Another really good thing is this accessory driving light bar. These are getting kind of hard to find for the original V92 series. It's got the fancy chrome fender. That's good for 20 horsepower right there. The mirrors are kind of loose. Just a lot of little stuff, but nothing real major. So worst case scenario, I may have to find a wire harness on eBay or something and put a new wire harness in it, and might have an actual functioning bike. I think what I'm going to start with, though, is I'm going to put a battery in it, plug everything back in, and just see where we're at. I can't diagnose it unless I get to point A. I mean, I'm at point Q right now. I'm going to back up just a little bit, and we'll get her fired up and hopefully get it fired up. I don't know what the fuel, let's look at the fuel. I'm kind of curious. He said he lined the tank, but I don't know how long ago that was. Ooh, I'm seeing rust. I'm seeing rust and lots of it. Get a little light here. I don't know how. Yeah. It smells like varnish. Okay, so we're very likely looking at complete fuel system issue. Ew. I hate that smell. Alright, so, but I'm not doing it now. It's 137.2 degrees out, which means that as I'm standing here, there's sweat dripping and soaking my feet. And so, as the sweat drips off of me, I'm going to head into the house where there's air conditioning. And tomorrow morning early, we'll tear into this thing and stuff a battery in it and just see what happens. Oh, and one more thing I did notice. Like I said, I'm going to put a battery in tomorrow. But looking at this battery, look at the terminals. Positive over here, negative over here. That's the opposite of how that battery is supposed to be in there. So I just wonder if maybe they had all these positive connections on the negative terminal, and then this is my positive wire that goes down to my starter relay. I wonder, this is the negative, so I wonder if the negative was on the positive, and the positive was on the negative, and maybe that's why they were having these electrical problems, didn't realize it, and then started disconnecting stuff to try to figure out what the problem was. So hopefully that's all it was. If that's the case, every diode, every rectifier, and every transistor in the entire system will be fried because it was hooked up backwards. But those are all replaceable components, I think. Anyway, we'll find out in the morning. Well, it's the next day. It's dark 30 in the morning, trying to avoid some of the heat. Now last night we had some pretty significant thunder and lightning and so forth, and a little bit of rain. 547 drops is all. Just enough to get the ground nice and damp and moist, so that way not only is it warm, but it's also humid. They'll tell you, Arizona's hot and it's a dry heat.
No, no, it's not. It's as humid as any other part of the country right now. So even though it's morning, it's still pretty warm. We'll do what we can before it gets so hot that we just melt. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to steal the gas tank and the battery out of that sport cruiser I resurrected here recently. It's just sitting over there collecting cobwebs and dust because I haven't got back to it to finish kind of cleaning it up. And that'll give us the ability to at least figure out if the electrical system in this bike is working. We'll get a battery out of it, and we'll get a gas tank with uncontaminated fuel. And put all that on here, everything should just bolt right up, and we'll see if we can actually get the thing to pop. Alright, now we're ready to go ahead and turn the key on. Got a battery in it. I have the fuel system disconnected here. When I turn the key on, I want to run the fuel pump first of all to see if it runs. If the fuel pump runs, I don't want to try and start the engine with that schmutz in there, which will just plug up the injectors. So I'm going to run it and kind of purge what's in the lines out, and then I'm going to put a little B12 in there, little bearings in there. Hopefully the pump will draw the B12 through there. It'll start dissolving all that crud so that when I do get good fresh gas, hopefully the injectors will be able to fire. But for now, we just want to see if the pump comes on. Will it prime? So here we go. Nothing. Well, shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I heard the gauge cluster make a noise. There's absolutely no display, so I have no idea how many miles are on it. And we have no fuel pump. So, take a look at the fuses. If the fuses check good, there's probably a chance, oh, we could have a bad relay, but with the ECU having been disconnected, clearly there's been a problem they've been chasing, and it may have to do with the fuel pump circuit, so we'll delve into that a little bit here. Checking the fuses. That one, power in, power out. That one's good. 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 Nothing. Power in, but nothing out. So I've got a blown fuse here.
And according to my ipsy-pipsy little map here, it says main instrument and brake. So, oh, main ignition and brake. Well, that would explain it. Ignition, you know, like computer and all that. So we'll stuff a fuse in it. Hopefully it won't blow, and maybe we can get the fuel pump to come on. Alright. Fuse. Ooh, I heard a click. Don't know what that means. Alright. Now I got power on both sides of that fuse. Alrighty. Let's see what happens when you cycle it. Well, I'm hearing the fuel pump relay click, which tells me it's sending a signal to the pump, but the pump itself is probably shot. That would be my guess, from sitting with schmutzy fuel in it. So we'll get to that. Goodness. Fuel systems are always such a mess. Alrighty, in order to access the fuel pump, there's a couple of approaches you can take. This whole metal side panel here actually can come off. You have to take the battery out of the way and the starter relay and some other stuff. That's one way to get to it. I find actually it's probably a little simpler just to take out the rear shock. These things are notorious for leaking, just like the forks. So I ultimately end up replacing them anyway. And you can see this one's been leaking. So that's another part this thing is going to need. And then you can get pretty good access to the fuel pump and the fuel filter and all the hoses that are associated with it. If you remember in my last video when I worked on that Sport Cruiser, we went through exactly the same process, so I didn't really videotape pulling this panel off and taking the shock out. I've got it supported with a jack because, of course, when you take the shock out, all of a sudden there's nothing to suspend the rear wheel. Something I noticed, though, is this cable here. I got to looking at it and going, boy, that's a pretty heavy conductor, and it's a 2-pin plug-in. And I'm going, you know what that looks like? That looks like the power feed from the voltage regulator to the battery. What's it doing way over here? It's supposed to be up here at the front, up underneath the starter. So I got to looking under there, and somebody's put an aftermarket voltage regulator on it and probably just wired it straight to the battery and just left this out of the circuit completely. I have no explanation. I checked it. Yep, sure enough, there's 12 volts getting to those terminals right there. So this needs to be rerouted down underneath the engine. Somebody did some weird stuff on this bike. Anyway, we're going to pop the fuel pump out and see if we're getting power to it. Alright, so I've unbolted the fuel pump from the bracket down in there. And it's got a Fram filter and it's got an aftermarket fuel pump on it, so somebody's changed it in the past. You know, these fuel pumps, they don't last forever. There's also a cut wire in there. I'm not sure what that goes to. I'm going to have to do a little research on that. So somebody's been in here hacking and gaffing. We're going to just see if we get a prime signal to this pump when the key is turned on. So I got my test light connected here. I'll turn the key on. And looky there. So we're getting a prime signal. That means the ECU is doing its job. The relay and the fuse are good. We've got a bad pump. And judging from the rust and crust on it and the crappy fuel in the tank, even though this is a replacement pump, it's probably been on the bike for a long time, and all that bad fuel has gummed it up. I happen to have one on the shelf, but I don't have a fuel filter. So I'm going to go to the parts store. I'm going to get a fuel filter. I'm going to see if I have the quick disconnect fittings, because somebody just had a regular T here, which, as you saw, made it kind of messy when I took the tank off. So we're going to try and do that. We're going to get some new fuel hose and put together a fuel system, and hopefully the fuel injectors haven't also been all schmutzed up. Schmutz is bad. No. I don't know if you guys can see the cut wire down there. There's a wire down here that's cut. I'm not sure what it goes to. I think it goes to the oil pressure switch because there's nothing attached to it. So that would make sense. Let me get my tripod balanced here. So it's easy enough to test. We're just going to connect a wire to it and ground it. Turn the key on and see if that oil light comes on when it's grounded or not. It looks like it's black in color, black with white dots, which very likely could be that sort of thing. So key on. Did its boot up? Oil light is not on. We're going to just ground it. We ground the wire and we see the indicator come on. Like how it goes off. Alright, so at least I know what it does. That's easy enough to fix. And before I put the fuel pump in, I'm going to go ahead and route that wire because it's a lot easier to get to before I put the pump back in. Goodness, come on tripod, work with me here. Alright, we're going to fix the wire. We're going to put in a new pump and a new filter and new hoses, and we'll go from there. Gotta love them solder sticks. Makes it real easy to get a nice soldered connection. And it seals itself up so I don't have to tape over it or anything. I would definitely recommend them. A lot of people say they don't like them. I'm not sure why. But I can get a really good connection out of it. So here's my new wire. I got the correct end in my pile of wires to go on the pressure switch. And then you can see right here where I use the solder stick to make that connection, and it's insulated, and I can just route this out to that pressure switch. It'll be good to go, and then we can put our fuel pump back in. Alright, fuel pump is in and mounted. It's connected to the injector manifold. But before I crank the motor and start opening and closing injectors, I want to get some Berrymans in there to start dissolving some of the crud. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to prime the system before I put a gas tank on it. And I'm going to put a little of this old Berrymans down in there, along with some gasoline. And that way those injectors will have a chance to soak in this stuff before I run it. A little bit of Berrymans. And then once it fires up, this is my return line. It'll circulate and squirt in there. Let me get some gasoline. That's all right. And just a tiny bit of gas. And after all, it is a fuel pump, not a Berryman's pump. Go. Gas. Gas. Thank you. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's superb. And away we go. Prime. Ooh, I heard the pump going. Watched it suck it right down. That's always good. Let's see here. I want to add more Berrymans. Yeah, sure, why not? Alright, I've reinstalled the shock. Didn't tighten everything down 100%. I'm not even going to put this plate back on, because I'm going to have to replace that shock eventually anyway, so I'm going to go online and order one. I had to steal the fittings off the Sport Cruiser too, because, well, they were not there. They're no good. We're going to go ahead and put the tank on it, and we'll just see if this thing will pop off. It'll fire off. This is all kind of temporary. I've got to order the fittings, and then I got to flush out the tank and all that. But at least we'll know if the engine and the electrical harness is doing what it's supposed to do, because other than a cut wire and the misrouted wire down here that doesn't go to where it's supposed to go, everything else looks okay. So let's get a take on this thing and see if it actually starts.
give me my hand back. And got that one. Really not much fuel in this. So we'll splash a little more in it. God damn, this thing leaks. Anybody else hate these gas nozzles as much as I do? Holy shit, they suck. Let's just spray gasoline all over everything. Alrighty. She should prime up. It's primed up. There goes nothing. Alright, so I don't know if we actually have plugged injectors or if we have no ignition system. We may have no spark. So I'm going to put a little starting fluid in it and see how she does. Alright, we're going to give this a shot. And this will tell us whether the problem is injectors or spark. It's got the coffin type filter, so we'll try to get enough in there to do something. Turn it right out. Well, that tells me my ignition system is working. We know we have fuel pressure, got a brand new pump in it. That tells me the injectors are plugged. Well, at least we know what we need to do from here. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I'm melting. It's really, really hot today. It's midday now, and it's just, I'm going to have to order stuff. I've got to order some quick disconnect fittings. I'm going to take that coffin filter off. I happen to have a 99 air filter, cone type filter, sitting on my shelf that we're going to put on it. But I still got to cut that one out because, well, I'm not dropping the engine just to get rid of the coffin filter. So we'll pull that off, and that way we can get to our fuel injectors. I've got a set of injectors on the shelf. So we'll get a rear shock coming. We'll get some quick disconnect fittings coming. We'll flush out the tank. I'll install a new set of injectors. And in the next episode, well, we should be able to get this thing on the road and make it a rideable bike. But it's going to be a few days before the parts arrive. So we'll call it quits for this episode. And I'm going to go inside the house and take a nice cold bath. No, wait. This is Arizona. We can either have a hot bath or a warm bath. We don't have cold baths here. The water coming out of the tap is warm. But it's better than the ambient air. Anyway, thanks for watching. Come back for the next episode. And hopefully we'll put this together and take it for a little cruise. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share. See you in the next episode.